Hello again. I just wanted to make a quick video concerning tithing. Now, I have a very comprehensive three-part tithing study on my channel. I also have a lengthy document that I would email you if you wanted concerning tithing and what tithing is concerning tithing in the New Testament, which there isn't any. It's really giving from the heart is the basis of giving in the New Testament. But there are still a number of people in the King James, Bible, whatever you want to label it, independent, fundamental, Baptist, blah blah blah, who teach tithing. And basically the way that they do this is how they I guess get over on people. And I'm not even saying that all of them are doing it with filthy lucre. I think that they grew up, many of them grew up just being taught this growing up, and so this is just what they learned to be a practical and truthful thing to do. So what they'll do is they'll use Genesis, where Abraham tithed a tenth of the spoils, to say, okay, tithing was a principle before the law, because many people will say that no, you don't tithe because tithing was under the law, and so they'll use Abraham as an example of why no, there was tithing before the law. It's principles throughout the Bible. And then they will largely use the doctrines for Israel. Shouldn't say doctrines. I guess the instructions for Israel concerning tithing as their core texts for showing how and why you're supposed to tithe. And then what they'll do is they'll use 1 Corinthians 9, if that fails, to show you that Paul made an application of the Levite earning his living from ministering about the things of the temple and the altar to those who preach the gospel should live of the gospel. And they'll say, see, Paul is using the example of the Levite earning his living from ministering about the temple, which he received the tithes of the people, which they think erroneously, and this is where this video comes into play. They think erroneously that the tithes were 10% of the gross income of everybody else in Israel. And they'll say, see, Paul is using an application of the Levite in the temple, and he's applying that to those who preach the gospel, the pastors and whoever, your local church, to make a New Testament application of tithing. And that's how they'll show that. That the problem is when you, and I talk about this in the videos and in my study, is this simple fact will destroy that teaching. And basically the teaching that a tithe was 10% of your gross income, and you'll see why that won't work today. And that is when you consider Jesus. If you want to ask them, well, what did Jesus teach tithing? Did he agree with tithing? Oh yes, Matthew 23:23. So you can look that up. I'm not going to cover that in the video. Jesus confirmed that they were supposed to tithe. Okay. Jesus and the apostles, did they tithe? Oh yeah, they tithed. Okay. Jesus was a carpenter, and the apostles that were told their occupations, there's 5 of them, not counting Paul, who was a tent maker. There you had Matthew, was a tax collector. You had Andrew, Simon Peter, James, and John were all fishermen. Now their living was earned from fishing and carpentry before Jesus went out preaching. He was a carpenter, and before the apostles followed him, they were fishermen. So they were under the law. So what were they tithing from their earnings from fishing and carpentry? Nothing. Those occupations were not something that you tithed from. The only things that were tithed were food grown in the land of Israel and clean beasts that were raised in the land of Israel. Those were the only things that were tithed, and I can make this video much, much longer, but explaining other things. But those things, any occupation, so any occupation that was not farming or raising livestock was not going to be something that was tithed, whatever it might be. A blacksmith, a potter, any of that stuff. Any kind of occupation where you made something, where you earned a living from anything other than growing and raising livestock, was not something that was tithed. So this idea, this fallacy that tithing is 10% of your gross income, is blown clean out of the water by that simple fact that the apostles and Jesus Christ would not have tithed from the livings that they earned from their trades of fishing and carpentry. So anytime somebody wants to put the tithing on you, just forget the whole principle of tithing. Forget the whole how 1 Corinthians 9 is applied. Don't get bogged down in all that stuff. Just go right to that fact that the apostles and Jesus Christ, who earned livings from those trades, were not commanded to tithe from that, and that totally destroys the idea that tithing is 10% of gross income. Thank you for watching.